held, the first one, to receive comments regarding the district's plans to sell bonds in order to increase the district's working cash fund and fund capital improvements within the district. We can ask Mary Kalu to go over this, and then there will be an opportunity for public comment and board questioning and comment as well. So, without further ado, Mary.
Okay. The purpose of the issuance of these bonds is to pay for the boiler replacements at Maine West and Maine South, and a chiller replacement at Maine West. The public notice was published in the Daily Herald on October 17th, which allowed for the community to see and then have the opportunity to come tonight. So really the public hearing is simply an opportunity for the board and district to receive any public comments that are on our intent to issue the bonds.
Do we have any comments from the board on this issue? Okay. If any members of the public are here and wish to speak, we ask that you see the comment card, and you have 3 minutes to speak. We ask you to keep your comments reserved to the topic at hand. Are there any public comments? Then I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the hearing. Second. All in favor of adjourning? Any opposed? Okay. That concludes that public hearing. We now have to wait till 6:05 for the second public hearing. Okay. Then wait. Let's just double check.
Cannot start before 6:05.
6:05.
It's or immediately following if the bond hearing
After
20 minutes.
Right. Thanks.
Go ahead and call for the second public hearing, which is being held on an application for waiver or modification of the state board rules and or school code mandates to allow students to utilize 9 simulation hours in lieu of 2.25 hours of direct behind the wheel instruction in the driver education program. Junior, would you please take the roll?
Fessler. Here. Childers. Collins.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
McGrath. Sullivan. Owen.
Here. Okay, at this time, I would like to again state that this is an opportunity for the public to speak on this issue. You'll have an opportunity to do that. I'm going to turn it over to Martha Varga to discuss the waiver request.
Well, those of you who were here 5 years ago will remember that this is exactly the same application that we brought to you before you at that point in time. This is to seek a waiver or modification of the state board rules and our school code mandates to allow students to utilize 9 simulation hours in lieu of 2.25 hours of direct behind the wheel instruction. We and many other school districts in the state of Illinois take part in this. I asked for a list of school districts just out of curiosity from Kentucky or contact downstate. There's 20 area school districts around us, Niles and Tree and the like, who engage in a similar process. What this is really doing is giving our students a real advantage and in a very safe, simulated fashion, be able to practice some of the skills in emergency driving that they may encounter in real life later on in so many hazardous conditions. So at this point, we're simply completing the paperwork and going through the process the state requires of us. This is absolutely no change to the regular program that we've had in place for the last 5 years.
Can you speak to whether you report, did you publish this?
We published it, yes. We've notified our state legislators and we've notified the MTA on this waiver, as is required.
Does the board have any questions or comments on this? If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak, we welcome you to do so. We just ask that you fill out a comment card and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments? Okay. If there's none, then I'd like to make a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That concludes our public hearings. Now, I'll call to order our call to order our regular board meeting. We'll join me in the pledge
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bessler. Childers. Collins. Here. Lee. McGrath. Sullivan. Owen.
Here. Okay, we start with 207's Best Award for Community Service this month, our favorite times in the meeting. And I think we can start with Maine East, right?
All right. Hello, everybody. I am pleased to present to you our selection for 207's Best for Maine East, Wisconsin Diamond. So, Wisconsin is a pretty active and well-known student at Maine East. She's got a GPA of north of 4 points at 4.33. She's got 4 APs this year, a very demanding schedule, rounded out with a schedule of orchestra, French 3, and dance. And she's been taking AP courses and accelerated all the way through school. It's also, I think, interesting as I look at her background or transcript. In the past, she's also taken Intro to Radio and TV, Intro to Business. She's a member of our Orchesis dance troupe, and has been a competitor in our Scholastic Bowl and our math teams. So I mean, she's interested in a lot. She really fills the definition of being sort of a lifelong learner. As I had a chance to visit with her a little bit a few days ago, I said, well, what are you thinking about college? She said, well, I'm not really sure yet because there are so many things that she's interested in. But the thing that is really playing a pivotal role in her decision process now is going to be her ability to continue to perform community service as she goes to college. And that's the reason that we've honored her tonight. So I think in terms of, obviously she's been very, very active in terms of her academics and the extracurriculars in the school, but by her own definition, she describes her community service as sort of being the very core of her being. She's been a library tutor at the Niles Public Library, and she's been really, really, really active as a Girl Scout since 6th grade. And I think sometimes, scouting sometimes gets a reputation for not being, kind of a cool thing, but she has embraced it and has really made a huge difference, I think, in the lives of many in our community. So, she's raised money for a number of service projects. She's been involved in collecting and sending school supplies to school children in Peru. Dedicated many hours in packing food at Feed My Starving Children with her troop, and she's also been the link for Maine East and some of our service organizations. National Honor Society is actually going to be doing a big outreach in just a few weeks with Feed My Starving Children. This year she's actively engaged in pursuing her Independent Gold Award Take Action project, which I sort of described as the Girl Scout equivalent of Eagle Scouts. So she is going to create, says here, going to create a lasting benefit for ecosystem with an emphasis on cleaning up the world's water sources. She's already spent hundreds of hours of planning and service time with many, many more to go. And I'm sure she's going to be enormously successful there. So at Maine East, she serves as Vice President of Community Service for our National Honor Society troop of 130 students or so. She took charge this year. NHS sponsored a haunted hallway, sort of a community outreach at Maine East, and she took charge of the haunted room. So it was the very first time in. We had over 100 families that came in on that Friday night. Everything I've heard, it was an overwhelming success. And she truly created a memorable haunted room. I think she set a very high bar for the second year here. In November, as NHS Service Coordinator, she's planning a food drive for the Maine Food Pantry, a trip to Feed My Starving Children, and a dinner for the Epsiba Children's Home. She's also very active in Rotary Interact, and last year was one of the officers in our first ever school-wide global initiative fundraising project to help raise money to support a village in Kenya in terms of sustainability last year. She also serves as a tutor and a coach TA to support others in terms of their academic success. Without exception, teachers speak to her as being very kind-hearted, very personable, sort of reflective, a little on the quiet side. I think Susie Caliendo summed it up really nicely. She said, "I've been constantly impressed with Ms. Gunn's maturity, focus, and passion for life. She has a strong sense of self, excellent judgment, and a true love of helping others. It seems wherever you look at Maine East, you can find the positive impact of Ms. Gunn's dedication and her charisma. She's a true servant leader in all that she does within our building and generously shares her time and talents with all of those around her." Also, I almost forgot to mention, she was absolutely amazing in our B show this weekend. The audience going, "Wow, who's that dancer?" It's like, "It's Ms. Gunn." Just tremendous. So again, no doubt that she makes our school, our community a better place for everybody to live. Very, very proud of her. I'm sure she's going to continue to do great things in college, and we congratulate you. I do have a question too, but let's do that. Who's here with you tonight?
With me here tonight is my father, Sanjay, my mom, Suda, and my brother, Pranam.
Very good. And what are you thinking for next year?
What I'm thinking is, as you said, I'm undecided on the major, so I plan on going to a university that has a wide scope of major, so I'll be able to explore over interests and be able to confidently declare my major once I feel I'm ready for it. And also, I plan to go to a university that's has a really good relationship with their community, so I would be able to continue my community service and plan projects for the school.
All right. Congratulations.
Next up is Maine South.
Sure, I would like to present Amanda Marino as Maine 207 Best for Community Service. So Amanda is one of our outstanding students. Again, I think that often comes along with that dedication to community service. Putting your time and energy into, I think you've taken 8 or more AP courses in your time here, and is excelling in all of those. But tonight we're going to talk about a little bit more of what she does around the building and in the community. She's a member of several organizations, but specifically to community service in our own building. A lot of her community service is done through NHS and the Spanish National Honor Society. She's a tutor for each of those organizations and also helps to organize tutors for students who need extra support managing their coursework at Maine South. Additionally, she's a member of our varsity tennis team. She teaches tennis lessons in the community. And as a member of Key Club and NHS, she spent untold hours engaging in volunteer activities. So whether it's helping in a soup kitchen as a member of Key Club or helping to organize our color run for our school-wide fundraiser, Amanda has played a pivotal role. And I'll just mention something that happened today, and I'll mention also for the event. I know her daughter was very much involved in Pure SMA, which was our school-wide fundraiser. And I mention that because Amanda plays a major role in our color run, which has routinely raised the most money as part of that fundraising effort. And I got an email today from a woman who had learned through a friend of hers, who's the grandmother of another student, that our school-wide fundraiser has done a phenomenal job raising money, and it turns out that her 24-month-old granddaughter has SMA. I wanted to reach out and just say how appreciative she was that our students had selected that as the fundraiser and then raised money for the effort. However, that's not all that Amanda does. You're very familiar with the organization that she spent a lot of time volunteering for because it's the Salvation Army. So back when she was in middle school, she began as a bell ringer outside of, I'm not sure what story you were outside of. And so began to give back in that way, and then found an interest in the Salvation Army. And she went on to be tapped as a fundraising coordinator and was asked to help with recruiting and organizing over 60 volunteers per weekend during the season. It requires her to arrange the locations, organize the schedules, and support the volunteers as they collect money for the annual fundraiser. So Amanda has been involved with that in a quite and given quite a bit of responsibility around that fundraising effort over the last few years. Additionally, in the summers, Amanda volunteers as an art teacher at a summer camp where she creates the curriculum and activities and works with over 140 students ages 4 to 13. And she also volunteers at Sasser House as part of their Thursday Night Friends program, making crafts and playing games with those with disabilities. So when you reach out and you ask about Amanda in the building from some of her teachers, Ms. Rizzi stated that she's an exceptional young lady, exclamation point. That's what was in the subject line of the email. She's hardworking, caring, conscientious, and driven. What impresses Ms. Rizzi the most about Amanda is how hard she works in order to achieve her goals. When others would surrender, Amanda forged ahead, exhausting every resource available to her in order to find success. She left me with an impression of a very responsible and self-motivated individual with a great attitude. Ms. Knight, her AP English teacher, had commented, she has a genuine desire to understand people, a desire which is rooted in truth and fairness and empathy. Amanda loves community service work and is always seeking opportunities to motivate, encourage, and help others. And lastly, Ms. Kay notes, actually Ms. Pendergrass notes, Amanda is a strong and self-reliant young woman. She's extremely driven to learn, to expand her understanding of the world, and to make a difference in people's lives. Amanda has keen insight about people and places and a natural ability to communicate with peers and adults. She takes her relationships and her responsibilities to heart, and I believe she will do amazing things in this world. So I don't think I could say it any better that we're very, very proud of Amanda, as well as helping to remind us that school is more than just about academics. And everyone tonight will help to remind us that building good young people who give back to the community is important, and Amanda is a role model for that. And so who's with you tonight, and what are some of your plans for next year?
This is my mom, Karen, and then that's my dad, Joe.
Put Dad in the back row.
That's me.
There he is. And what are you thinking about for school and maybe your future?
I'm interested in studying economics as for my major, and then I would like to double minor in Spanish and Chinese. I've taken both all 4 years. I really like it, so see how that goes.
Yes, it's my honor to introduce you Kayla Baez. And just like our other two recipients tonight, Kayla is just an amazing young lady who gives more of herself to others than she takes in for herself. I found a really cool quote by Lewis Carroll that says, "One of the secrets of life is that all that really is worth the doing is what we do for others." So Kayla has figured out the secret of life because this is what she does. And I went to Randy Harper, who runs a group in our school called Voice for the Nameless, and they by far do the most community service of anybody else in the school. So I asked Randy who is above everybody else there, and of course Randy said Kayla. And I got to see Kayla as a guest speaker in a classroom, and she talked briefly about what makes her interested in doing for others. And she said she grew up in her earlier years in the city of Chicago, where she saw more homeless people than what we would see here. And she decided then that she wanted to do more. So her getting involved at Maine West has really given her that opportunity to do that. So one of the biggest things she does is works with Voice for the Nameless. That's a human rights organization at Maine West. They reach out to advocate for those who may not be able to advocate for themselves. Kayla's a leader in that group, and also the, I want to get it right, the events co-chair. So she makes sure that the events are running and that she gets other students there to these different events. She has volunteered over 100 hours at a place called Inspiration Corporation in the city of Chicago. This is a place where homeless people can go to get a dignified meal, where Kayla has cooked and served meals in a restaurant setting rather than a soup line kind of situation. And Kayla has more hours than anybody else in that situation. She's also done work at Feed My Starving Children, where she has put in more than 50 hours, more than anybody else there. She was a part of a group that held the record for a very long time for the most boxes boxed in that hour of time that they are there, serving children who are malnourished internationally. She's also the key organizer for Amnesty International's Right for Rights campaign, where she helped other students write over 450 letters to those who need that in the past 2 years. Most recently, she's been working with a group called Refugee One, which is a resettlement agency for refugees. She helped with their holiday parties in the past 2 years. She recently helped with the Halloween party. She helped pack backpacks for students who were starting school in the fall. And she's also helped to organize welcome packs for families who are first coming here to settle. And she was part of a small group of students who went with Mr. Harper to the City Council in Des Plaines to talk about making sure that Des Plaines is a warm and welcoming community, trying to get a resolution passed so that we would welcome refugees. And it was interesting for the students because obviously they thought that this is something awesome that everybody should embrace, and they were met with groups on either side of that issue, and Kayla stood up very proudly and boldly to state her concern about welcoming these families to Des Plaines. She's really a great example for others at Maine West. She did a wonderful job as a guest speaker in that classroom, and others are already stepping forward wanting to be more like Kayla. So we do not have another student at Maine West who has dedicated more time and energy outside of her own life to other people, and we proudly recommend her as 207's best. So tell us who's here with you tonight, Kayla.
This is my dad, Hans, my mom, Yesenia, and my very close family friend.
Awesome. And you have a couple teachers here.
Oh yeah, and I have Mr. Harper here.
Yes. And Dr. Papa George as well.
Dr. Harper.
Awesome. And what are your plans next year?
I want to study at either Indiana University in Bloomington or DePaul University, and I want to study accounting.
Can't go wrong with either one.
Okay, we have one more award. It is not a student award, but it is a superintendent's award. We'd like to present that at this time. Ben?
So as tonight's theme for our students was service, I want to take a moment tonight, one, to recognize the many, many, many wonderful and great teachers, people like Randy, people like Tim, who really set an example for our students in terms of leadership and promote leadership. We have a teacher tonight that we're going to recognize that I think exemplifies in an extraordinary way what service really can look like in the very best and worst of circumstances. Nathaniel, would you stand up? This is Nathaniel Miller here with us, and you're a triplet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, your brothers, and how about mom and dad stand up too? I want to talk just briefly about the event that has brought the Miller family here tonight with us. Scott, would you stand up? Everyone, this is Scott Smith. He is a PE teacher, a driver's ed teacher, and a head football coach at Maine East High School. And I say this all the time, we really look for the very best teachers. What we're looking for is not only great teachers, but great people, great employees. And I would argue that Scott exemplifies all of those things. He is an uncommonly thoughtful, caring man who sees the best in his students, looks for the best in his students, and promotes the best in his students. At the end of the month in August, as Scott was supervising his physical education class, Nathan was a new student to that class that day, only maybe the fourth day in class, and he had an event. He passed out on the track and had a cardiac event. Scott rushed to his side, was calling 911, instructing other students to go into the school and get help. And while he's talking to 911, he began CPR on Nathan, kept him going. We got him to the hospital at Lutheran. And from there, he's undergone a series of tests. And I'm going to read this to make sure that I get this right. And I did this with the family's permission, so I didn't want to, talk about something that's a medical condition without the family understanding. Nathan ended up at Lurie Hospital, and their test revealed that he had a congenital coronary artery anomaly, which is normally only found in an autopsy. So to say that Scott's actions that day were heroic, I think, meets the truest definition of heroism. And so, Scott, I am so proud of you on behalf of District 207, to the Miller family. We are so thankful that you're with us tonight, and Nathan, we're so thankful that you're with us. And I felt it was incredibly important tonight to take this moment to recognize one of our just really great teachers, and we're so blessed to have so many of them in this district. Great teachers, great people, great human beings. And so with that, I have a superintendent's award tonight for Scott Smith for Memorandum. You can say something if you want to, but you don't have to. No requirement.
I'm overwhelmed. Thank you. I'm blessed to be in the right place at the right time.
Thank you very much. So normally, guys, we now step out and take pictures of the students of the month, but I'm assuming, Dave, you may want to get a picture or two of the Millers and Scott as well. So you guys are excused to go ahead and get pictures. You're welcome to come back and stay with the meeting, but if you got homework and want to do something else, no need to come back tonight. Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you to all of you for being here. I think it's student service starts young and as you see continues on. So thank you to all of you. Parents for doing such a great job with children. Amazing and responsible. Feel free to have pictures.
We're going in the hall to take
Scott, congratulations.
This is zooming in and out. That's going to on top. And then the focus is right behind a little bit of pressure on the button. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Okay, while they're moving out, this is the portion of our meeting where we have opportunity for public comments. Are there any cards for public comments? Okay. We have an update from the superintendent.
A couple of things. One, I want to publicly acknowledge November 15th is School Board Appreciation Day in the state of Illinois. And among the thankless jobs that one can have in life, service on the school board is on the list. But it takes an incredible school board to be able to do the things that we can do in District 207. And we've been very blessed here in this district to have an outstanding school board, which continues today. And the reason that we've been able to move forward and do the innovative things that we have done in this district is because of both the intelligence, the insight, and courage of our board members. So I want to take a moment to just acknowledge our tremendous Board of Education. The second thing tonight, which will be on the consent agenda, is that we have an MOU, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, Jen, and you will correct me, with, I believe it's Taewon High School in South Korea. We are signing a memorandum of understanding that will be on the consent agenda. It's something that Member Lee has worked on for a number of years, and we've finally been successful. And Jen, I'll let you say a couple words about that.
Thank you quickly. I think this exchange MOU relationship will bring a broadened opportunity for the students, definitely. And it also develop a broader perspectives of the world from the students, from both sides of the culture, from the world. And it also learns to appreciate so many different cultures that we are living in. So with the respect and the love of learning the culture from different countries will be great opportunity, and also in global education, knowledge and opportunity too. So I am delighted to see that our main township is pursuing such, and we hope to expand this opportunity for the future with the maybe schools, sister schools within Europe, maybe somewhere in South America and other countries in Asia, and so on, so that students can come and go and learn and respect about the different culture throughout. So thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward, and this is a great school from South Korea.
Are there any updates from board members? I did want to mention that several of us were in a cook dinner, and there was a really impressive presentation on the importance of the arts and emphasis on the arts this time. The new concept being STEAM, as Ken's talked about before, which includes the arts. Just some really compelling information about how important the arts are to success in all areas of school. So it was really good, I think very helpful. Even though it was on the night of the Cubs game, and we were struggling to pay attention. Finance Committee report.
On October 27th, we called a meeting to order at 5 p.m. attended by myself, Board Member Bessler, and Board Member Childers. We covered 5 items that evening. First one was the tentative tax levy, for which we held a hearing earlier this evening. The amount is 1.85% increase over last year's, $114,911,966. The vote on that budget will be December 5th. Second, we talked about the 2016-2017 tuition cost per pupil. It is down by 1.3% decrease from last year. Tuition for this year for students from outside the district, $18,404.11. The third item was the modification of existing agreement with Rad Flowers to include the option for the sale of commemorative T-shirts. There is no cost to the district for that modification. The fourth item was an agreement with PMA, Financial Advisor, to assist the district with the potential bond sale, for which we have a public hearing this evening. The fee to PMA for this assistance and financial advising is $34,972. The fifth item is the establishment of a formal site license agreement between District 207 and Advocate Health and Hospitals for the school-based health center at Wayne East. All of these items will forward to the board with recommendation for approval without objection from the committee. Board Member Bessler is sticking at number 5 because of our existing work relationship with that.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds Committee report.
As Buildings and Grounds, we met on October 27th. Meeting was called to order at 5:22 p.m. We spoke about 3 major items. The first being the capital projects 2017-2018. Mary Kalu, Assistant Superintendent for Business, presented a list of capital projects to be done during 2017-18. And they include the replacement of the boilers at South and West. And those will be funded through the sale of $9.8 million in bonds, which we had the public hearing on earlier. HVAC systems will be replaced in the administration center and in the wrestling room and server rooms at East. All 3 schools will have resurfacing of their tennis courts and replacement of doors, floors, kitchen equipment, and changes to security system. General resurfacing of specific parking lots, painting, and roofing will be completed over the summer. And the estimated cost involved in these projects is about $13.3 million. The second item we spoke about was a White & Company agreement, and this was a proposal from the architects, White & Company, which includes a customized planning analysis of the physical condition of our schools and space constraints for future enrollment. A summary of options and recommendations will be presented for each school at a total cost of $150,900. And then the third item that we spoke about was the Alara engineering agreement. 3 separate AIA agreements for replacement of boilers at South and West and HVAC systems and administration were discussed. The agreements were reviewed by legal counsel, and by using Alara Direct instead of going through the architect, the district will save 1.25%. Our committee recommended that the capital projects White and Alara agreements would be brought to today's meeting for approval. And we then adjourned at 6:07 p.m.
Policy, Margaret is not here. Do you want to go over it now?
No, I'll take it.
What do you take?
The policy committee was held the same meeting. It was called to order at 6:09 p.m. We covered multiple policies, starting with policy 603 on residency. Greg had made a presentation that evening. That policy was modified by our attorneys because of changes in state law. The revised policy must be in place by January 1, 2017. Next item was policy 6004, the assessment of tuition for illegal residency. It's a partner policy to 6003. Students found not to be legal residents of school will be charged tuition as accepted by the board. We discussed it at the finance committee. A student begins the school year as a legal resident. The student may finish the school year without paying this tuition. It's only if they're identified to have been out of the district at that time. Next item was policy 6540, a suicide and depression awareness policy. It's a new policy, comes straight to us from the Illinois Association of School Boards Press. Policies, it's necessary to be in compliance with the new law and to be in place by January 1 of 2017. All 3 of these policies are included in the board packet tonight for the first read. So if there's any questions and reviews, it'll be voted on next month as final, so that they're in place by January 1. Some revisions were recommended by the committee, and those will be voted by Mr. Deeds before it comes back to us in December. And there will be another committee meeting, because we also discussed the fact that we're starting to review all of our policies for compliance with CREST, and we're starting with the 1000s series of our policies to be modified into CREST policies and version of the numbers, and that version of policies is going to take us some time. So the committee is going to go back to committee work in order to bring it forward to the board on their date. The meeting was adjourned at 6:08 p.m. and was attended by all 3 members, which was myself, Chairperson Graff, and Mayor Jeffers.
Question more, what do we bring up? The term that we use, illegal residency, for example, policy 6004. Nowadays, I mean, by law, I don't know if it is to use illegal, because we don't know what use illegal residency or illegal immigrancy. So we change kind of wording to undocumented residency.
It's not the same
Well,
thing.
these-
It's not the same thing.
And the difference between an undocumented resident, somebody who comes to us from another country and is not here lawfully, and we used to refer to as illegal, they don't have proper documentation. This has to do with, irrelevant of whether or not you have documentation, you do not reside within the district that pays the taxes for these schools. Therefore, you have illegal residency. You are not actually a resident of the district. So, a different nomenclature.
They've
District
submitted
residents.
fraudulent papers usually to try to gain residency when they really don't.
So we are fully aware about it.
Yes.
Yes.
And the press policies often point right back to the school code language, so it's taking it right out of the school code.
And if the law, the school code changes, the policies will change in the future.
One more.
But it is truly illegal because it can be punishable by a misdemeanor offense.
Moving on to monthly status of finances.
In your board packet is the September financial report. On the revenue side, we are in line with previous years. Again, you see kind of a spike based on the percentage of the year completed because of the tax collections. And similar to other years, the state owes us about $1 million from 2016, which we anticipate receiving by December of 2016, and they also owe us $1.1 million that they're behind for this year's payments, which we would anticipate receiving sometime in the spring. On the expenditure side, the expenditures are in line with the budget. You can see spikes in those funds to where we have capital projects like health, life safety, and operation and maintenance, which is what you would expect from funds that, where the summer work goes on. I will entertain any questions that anybody has on the September financial statements.
Any questions? Thank you, Mary. Instructional services, Barb, report on pupils.
Sure, yes. First of all, I'd like to thank John Marzoff, who's with us this evening, and also my assistant Dan Bacher, both of whom contributed mightily to the production of these reports as they do every year at this time. The first report that we're going to bring to you is the advanced placement report for FY 2016. And there's a lot of information here, which we're not going to take the time to go over this evening, but let me give you a few big takeaways. First of all, you'll remember that the district has set a goal for itself to increase the access to a rigorous curriculum for all of our students. And to that end, we are looking at ways that we can open up doorways and increase access and increase support for more and more of our students to be able to handle and experience an AP course. You'll also remember that the board passed our request asking for the covering of the finances of one of our AP tests with the exclusion of $15 that students would cover, so that that wouldn't be a barrier, at least for that first AP test that students would take. So we're taking this very seriously. This work began in earnest last year, although it has been something we looked at prior to that. And we pay attention to the challenge index, which you'll remember is an index developed by the Washington Post, which is looking at the number of exams that are taken by or May, June graduates. We've set a goal of reaching the 3.0 index by 2020. On average, having each of our May, June graduates have, on average, 3 exams by the end of their career. I was interested to hear one of our young ladies tonight said she was taking 8 AP courses. Wondering how she squeezes all of that in with all the other work that she's doing. But we're really looking to try to support and build these networks and pathways for kids to have this kind of rigor in the curriculum. When you look at the numbers here, just in the past year, we have increased the number of exams in the past year by about 11.2%. So we've made some good headway. Even though we've had declining enrollments over the past several years, we're having more kids enroll in AP, and they are sustaining or even increasing, in most cases, their achievement of the 3, 4, or 5. And you may remember that Illinois passed a law saying that a score of 3 or above has to be honored by a state or public university in Illinois with at least elective credit, if not pertinent credit, perhaps some major. So that's pretty important for our students to be able to have that in their hip pocket. Certainly taking that score of a 3 to the University of Illinois and getting credit for a 3-hour course, that's $2,000 on average that they're having in their pocket. Several of our students may enter as college sophomore, at least have a semester under their belt. A side benefit to this. So what this report does is give you some of the particulars. It also gives you a peek into the intense conversations that our department chairs are having in their buildings and as groups of chairs in certain subject areas to kind of examine, okay, here's what our scores are, here's our enrollment numbers, what's our curriculum looking like, where are practices to be improved, what PD do our teachers need, can we learn from some of our area school districts or some area conferences about what others are doing to bring the AP experience to students who normally haven't imagined themselves to be college students. This is ongoing work, and we're taking it seriously, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to bring to you reports in the future that see even greater gains. We know we need to get after some of our underrepresented populations. I think the report points to some of that, but we are making some progress, and I think we'll continue to be able to see that. The other thing you need to know is that we're sharing this report with our partner districts, our K-8 districts, and we know that we can't just start the work in ninth grade, that it has to be something that's looked at and embraced in the grades that precede us. So I had a meeting last week with the other assistant superintendents from District 62, 3, and 4. They were very interested to see this. They are working with us to try to help identify kids and to build curriculum and help kids get ready. We are also going to be able to use the new SAT suite of exams to give us some data on AP potential of kids. Kids that we can look at early on to see whether or not we can recommend them or point them in the direction of some AP curriculum. So that in a nutshell are the big takeaways that I would leave you with. Are there any questions that you have on what is a very detailed report and really giving you some good information to look at what the departments are doing in response to the data?
I just wanted to point out, one thing I noticed was just, you know, the numbers going up, for example, at Maine East. The number of students taking it has increased, and the percentage of students with a 3 and above have increased. Because I would, you know, I think you see, probably as you give more, that's gonna come down, or that's gonna be the tendency. So this clearly bucking the trend, which is really fabulous.
Ken has frequently said, as we've gotten more diverse and poorer, and our enrollment has gone down, we still are seeing the upticks in trends, and I think East is leading the way on that too.
I think I told the board earlier that the 2016 is the first year that all 3 of our schools posted 2.0 challenge indexes or better. So that's a first in the history. It's a big milestone. So
And just increasing the numbers of students who are taking it, you know, at Maine West, really
Maine West has had a big jump. Yep. And what Carl's referring to is normally when you increase the N, you have a phenomenon called regression to the mean. So you'd expect as you increase the mean to have your performance go down a little bit. And South has held pretty steady. East has actually improved. West has gone down a little bit, but I think West is seeing a real increase in numbers in a short amount of time. So I feel very strongly that, you know, they're going to keep working on strategies to improve that.
We were actually up 151 kids in our scores right now. So, did well as well. 0.2%.
And the challenge index.
And the
almost
challenge
doubled.
index,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
One thing I'd like to ask is when you spoke with the superintendents of 62 the one thing I was wondering is, you know, in the past, they have kind of limited their channels of challenge and all of those, at least I know about 64. Did they talk about expanding some of their gifted programs as opposed to limiting it?
I think that's definitely the conversation that's being had. I know Sean and I and Kelly Morrissey and Dan Bacher, and was that the total team that we took, when Don as well. We went over to District 64 when they were having their channel of challenge conversation and really shared with them some of the data that showed, you know, in our minds, there are more kids there who can handle this. And I think that was very helpful for them. And I think they've made progress in that work there. I know also Jan Rashid over in District 62 is leading a whole conversation on rethinking some of their programs and access to challenging initiatives. So it's really good conversation, and they're asking us for this data, you know, by their district so they can see how their kids are doing, so that they can specifically think about why they might have, you know, overlooked some kids or need to rethink some of the course offerings.
What I'm finding is it's not uncommon for K-8 districts to use that 95th percentile marker on map as your entry to gifted. And so that's pretty traditional. So I would say that anything that 64 is currently doing is not atypical of where schools are.
Right, right.
It's just badly outdated.
Second portion.
Okay, so The second one is really the last time you're going to see this report. This is the 13th and final graduating class to participate in the entire ECAS testing system. And that in number is about just under 1,300 students were present to take all 3 exams. If you've read through the report, you know that at South and at West, that's about 88% of the students. The number is lower at East, I'm guessing, because of mobility issues and transfers and so forth, the transient nature of some of the populations. That number was 77% for East. And this report, I think, a long time ago really sort of represented a paradigm shift for us, because we began looking at what we should expect based on some historical data versus what we're observing. And so if you look at the growth that's outlined on page 2 of the 40-page report, you'll see that familiar chart for the scores in English, math, reading, science, and the composite, the observed versus predicted. And even when there are a couple places where the target was not met, all 3 schools showed growth in every area assessed, even when they fell short by a bit of that growth target. And in general, and this is again a quote from the report that Don put together, even as our traditional at-risk student enrollment increases at each building, we still see that there's growth occurring, and the trend line is an upward tick. So this particular report has at the end a visual of that I find really helpful, the last 3 pages. You can see he's pulled a sample report from West, one from South, and one from East that shows you the line of prediction and whether or not in this particular subject area case they are above or below the line. These, for example, West ACT reading, they were way above the line that was predicted. South, you have the report for math, and East for science. In each case, schools are doing better than predicted based on the historical data. I want to remind you that in the future, we are going to be substituting for this longitudinal package with the SAT suite of assessments. It'll take us a while to get kids through those years of having all 3 exams. We gave the first administration in October. We should be getting scores back in December, and so maybe we'll have something to talk about after the first of the year. I'm not quite sure, but we'll see how that all rolls out. Right now, we're just getting used to the new system.
I have one other question. So if the state, excuse me, if the state chooses SAT based on a contract only, like they're basing it on money, basically they picked, there wasn't any attribute picked, right? There wasn't any special attribute of SAT versus ACT. It was strictly
Well, it had to be a
contract,
college,
right?
it had to be a college entrance exam.
Well, yeah, it had to be a
RFP
college
process.
entrance exam, but my understanding was that it was based on a
RFP,
request,
they
RFP,
did an
whatever,
RFP.
right? So, do they sign multi-year contracts for
I
that?
think it's 3, is it a 3-year?
Yeah.
Usually it's like a 3-year agreement.
So it could be that so they sign a 3-year contract, but it could be that they revert to SAT in 3 more years.
I hope not.
But I mean, they could.
I can't speak for what they would do, but I think there's some other benefits.
I'm not saying that whether we think there are, I'm just
Okay.
saying that the state picked it based on, because that's why that's why we're gonna follow it, right? Is because that's what the state is offering.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that if the state picked it on basis of an RFP, then there's chances that we might not have longevity of this longitudinal study in the future, because they might revert to another, I mean, in 3 years they could switch again, right?
Yeah, the good thing is though, and check me on the dollar amounts, with ACT, remember we picked up the cost of it at, what was it, 100 grand?
Almost 90-something.
90-something grand 98, there it says. Whereas the cost for all 3 years of SAT, the suite of SAT is not, it's like, it's less than half of that. So if we were in a position, let's say, and this is all hypothetical, it's, you know, she won't have to twist Mary's arm, but if we decided we were gonna stick with SAT no matter what the state did, it would be a much less costly decision than if it were the reverse, if we were going to ACT. And I think the value that we're going to find in SAT between the linkage with the Khan Academy and the customization for students, the College Board, the AP potential, this is a happy move.
Yeah, again, I'm not questioning our motives or
Right.
what we think of it, I'm just questioning the state.
Yeah, well,
And
you know.
I mean, that's what I'm wondering, that's all, okay,
But
thanks.
the interesting thing there is that if we chose to stay with this, regardless of what the state was recommending and we pay for, we could do
We
that.
could do that, it's not going to break the bank.
And the state, it'll be very hard for them to bounce back and forth between tests. They've made this move now to shift to SAT, and so it's going to be very hard for them to bounce back and forth for the very reasons that you're talking about. Plus, there is a signature feature that's a piece of the SAT that I think is going to gain a lot of traction. They report over 12% more students being college ready in ACT. That right there is going to work a lot better for kids in the state of Illinois. So there's going to be, I think, significant pressure for the state to, once they get used to SAT, to keep it. I hope anyway.
So the schools can pressure the state for which test to take?
ESSA has a pathway in it, which is why the high school dropped apart. They have a pathway in it for the high schools that our annual accountability exam can be a college entrance exam. So that's likely where the state of Illinois is headed here. That was the door that allowed us to drop Park, because technically we were supposed to administer Park for 2 more years. So no one's sad about that.
Okay, thanks.
Monthly update on FOIA requests?
We had 3 this month and they've all been processed.
School calendar. Information?
Yeah, for the board members' information this month, we've got the tentative calendar. These calendars were created by the calendar committee that's composed of equal representation of administrators and bargaining unit members. We met in late October. We had preliminary draft calendars that we examined and that eventually the group came to. These particular calendars. What I can tell you, the board, is we've kept the same parameters that we established about 2 or 3 years ago with our survey to parents. We are ending with first semester with winter break, finals before winter break. We're entering school before Memorial Day, 179 student attendance days, as always, 185 contractual teacher work days. Probably the only minor change that I think is noteworthy is we moved an institute day to the election day in November, because that is traditionally a day when the sending districts have an institute day. And this will allow us to hopefully be able to do some district-wide articulation meetings with the sending districts.
Feedback on the calendar change, where finals are occurring before? Nothing?
I'm guessing this is one of the cases where there's no news is good news. I would imagine if we tried to go back, we'd then hear something.
Okay. Okay. Policies and procedures. We have first reading on 2 policies. 3 policies. Do you want to?
As Sean put nicely in previously, we have the 6003 residency, that is policy which is being changed to be updated in compliance with the new state law. And 6004 is also a policy that's being updated that goes along with that. You will see a note that I received from our law firm based on to the question that the policy committee members posed during our policy committee meeting. So the answer to the question, if someone doesn't pay tuition, then we cannot disenroll them that current year, but we could not readmit them for the next year.
But if they choose to stay there, we can bill them every year.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, how do we get the money back?
Small claims court is the best. You know, this is why your front end residency checks have to be good.
It matters what the value is and how much they owe. But there are multiple avenues for governmental entities like us to get money. We could sue them directly in court. We can also turn around and attach their state income tax returns. So there are multiple collection method opportunities available for us.
Have we ever had any experience with such cases recently, let's say within, say, 2 years or 5 years?
We have our first case that we are filing in small claims court, as we discussed probably months ago.
But it's not in relationship to it.
It's not a tuition.
Tuition.
It's
not tuition, it's an
It's
a debt, and we would classify the tuition debt as any other debt of the district.
Or related to the tuition exclusively?
We have 2 non-residents that are paying tuition this year, and we haven't had any problem.
But
And we have not, I mean, we've never, in the 5 years I've been in.
And just to clarify, because I think this is an important distinction, I think this policy relates to those students that you allow to enroll in your school district and pay tuition, which we do. Some school districts have a prohibition against that. So if this ever became a problem, that would be the other thing that we could consider, is not to allow. But we have had good luck with the families that we allow to enroll in tuition. We've always we've not had an issue with collecting the tuition.
So district will honor students from outside of our district as long as they come forward in advance and let them know that they're willing to pay.
Yeah, I mean, they have to apply, and so and we don't have a bunch of them do that, but we do from time to time have a few that come in.
It's on a case-by-case basis, and the board has to approve that. Okay, and then the last policy is a new policy, suicide and depression awareness and prevention. The policy committee discussed that. This policy is straight from the Illinois Association of School Boards, and it's their recommended policy on this particular topic. And so I'd be more than happy to answer more questions in detail. If any board members have specific questions, if you want to call me or email me, I can get you more specific answers later.
Just very generally, briefly, can you just share us with such, because it's been a great burden for our society nowadays that the young students are becoming facing depressions and also suicidal situations, especially when we see it on the global side, other side of worldwide, we see so many young children are facing such. What is our current status? Do we ever see such? Do we have some kind of a very strong preventive programs for the students when if they need a help with such?
And while this is a new policy required by the state, this is not new to our district. We have had very comprehensive suicide and depression awareness programs in place in 3 schools for an awfully long time.
We run groups at each of our buildings with our psychologists, social workers, and so we have a pretty systemic approach to helping students in need, regardless of what the need is.
Did students ever come in front willingly saying that I have a XYZ problem or concerns and issues and I need help?
Yes.
Oftentimes through our school health center, I mean, that was the #1 reason for treatment on kids with seniors, mental health, behavioral health. Needs definitely, which is great that they're accessing it, and they can do so, that was enough, besides sponsors.
This is very important policy.
Okay, that's first reading, so we'll be, any questions on that or comments? Follow up. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move 8A through H.
Jamie, would you please call the roll? Dessler? Collins?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Could I have a motion on item 9, Board of Education Policies and Procedures, second reading?
I'll move the second reading of policy 2650 and 4,002.
Second.
Discussion? This is the second reading again, so we have time to this. Any questions or comments? Would you please call the roll? Sullivan? Lee? Collins?
Aye.
Bessler? Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 10, summer school calendar fees with a modification that was distributed regarding summer tuition costs.
So moved.
Second. Okay, any questions or comments? Or just nothing?
Just the updated copy that you laid down in front of you as a correction of the master's
On the
down.
credit for summer school
Right.
costs, the tuition fees.
So we've shared this calendar with, again, with the assistant students from the townships, and they're fine, but appreciative that it gives our incoming freshmen, their students, not just to her.
All right, any questions, comments? Hearing none, would you take the roll? Lee?
Aye.
Bessler? Collins? Sullivan? Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 11, new course proposals.
So moved.
Second. Barb?
Yes, I just want to make one or two comments on this. You saw this last month, but I believe in Friday notes you alluded to the fact that we added one course that we're hoping you will include in this batch to approve, and that is the Med Tech dual credit course with Oakton that may be online or blended or both. It is a semester half credit, it's described on page 18 to 20 of this packet. And the reason for it coming forward at this time is there were some ongoing discussions with Oakton that were occurring. And we are really interested, obviously, in having this be approved because it is almost like a prerequisite for many of the certifications and degrees in the healthcare pathways that Oakton offers. We had previously had it folded into our healthcare careers course, but to get the dual credit Oakton is one must unbundle it from that. So I had a recent meeting at that breakthrough, and they are fine with us offering it in this fashion. It's all verbally approved on their end. So we're bringing it to you for consideration to add this as a choice for students.
Let me just make sure I understand. Was there credit given?
Not dual credit.
Okay. So this breaking it out allows the dual credit
Right,
too.
right. And this is something that's offered for dual credit in some neighboring districts in the unserved district. So we're not on the cutting edge on this or
There's a-
leading edge. We are
Okay,
just,
okay.
This is a very good thing for us.
yes, it is.
Okay.
The only thing is you might want to correct, I think it says medical technology, and it's medical terminology, isn't it?
Where did I put medical technologies?
In the
On the
chart,
cover sheet?
in the course
Okay.
proposal.
On the proposal itself, it says medical terminology on page 19 at the top. That's the correct.
What's the page?
Page 19, page 19. It's on mine. So my mistake is on the cover sheet that I put together. It should say, thank you, Terry, it should say medical terminology. This is really just a shorthand to find the individual.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Any other questions or comments on that? Or any of the proposals? Okay. Ginny, would you take the roll, please? Collins?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Okay, can I have a motion on item 12?
I'll move that the Board of Education establish an estimated budget amount of $115,211,966, which represents a 1.86% increase over the prior year's expenditure. While public hearing is not required by law, as the Board of Education is not levying more than 5%, we are fulfilling the requirements to inform the community on the 2016 tax levy by holding a public hearing on December 5th, 2016 at 6 p.m.
Any questions or comments? Oh, sorry. Need a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I just want to point out that while we are asking for a 1.86% increase in the tax levy, existing homes, unless their assessment changes in proportion to everybody else's, will only see a 0.7% increase, because that is what we are capped at under the tax caps. So the difference is the new property that we are estimating.
Which we have, because the CPI for this year is
0.7. 0.7.
So we're establishing an estimated levy here.
Yes.
Okay.
and we're budgeting for new construction.
Yes. Of which there is quite a bit. And if you don't levy for it, you don't get it.
Any other comment, questions? Would you need to take the roll, please? Sullivan? Bessler? Collins? Lee? Owen? Aye. Could I have a motion on item 13, capital projects?
Second.
Mary?
This begins the task of approving these projects, which we talked about at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, and then many of these projects you will see come back to you again in form of acceptance of bids. So this is the approval for moving forward with designing and bidding these projects. Most of them are scheduled to be completed for the summer of 2007. They include the major projects on the boilers, the tennis courts, and all of the items that were summarized during the Buildings and Grounds meeting.
Any other questions or comments?
This has not been a surprising budget that we've been setting it off for, asking for this amount of money.
I think that I have been talking about the need to replace the main west and the main south boiler for several years. So I think we're getting to the point where it's starting to get, I mean, we have planned to get through the winter, but certainly the boilers are not as reliable as we would like to see them be. And heat is a vital element to having school.
And we, in just about every case, we have greatly exceeded by, in some cases, 20 years of life expectancy of boilers. So no one can say that we haven't been good stewards of taxpayer money and really extending the life expectancy on our systems.
And at the same time, did we also put some side concern financial budget to prepare for such a rainy days like this?
That's what we're doing.
I mean, now, but I'm saying it's like 3-5 years ago.
Yeah, well, we've been committing a fair amount of cash to do projects annually. We've spent millions of dollars on cash to do projects. So we've tried to budget frugally for that. The problem is that on the scope of the amount of square feet of space that we have in this district, 1.5 million square feet of space under roof, and it's a function of something we've talked about probably dozens of times, the vagaries of tax caps when they came in Illinois. It limited the amount of borrowing you had to the amount of debt you had at that time. District 207 had no debt and borrowed $1 million just to have debt, which $1 million sounds like a lot, but when you look at the scope of the projects that we've got, we don't have as much debt capacity as it probably would take to take care of our facilities and meet the needs. If you look at the league of schools that we're in against CSL schools that you refer to all the time, the Glen Brooks and New Trier, those school districts have spent not tens of millions, but hundreds of millions of dollars, not on their school facilities. We have bare bones, our facilities, we have taken boilers that have 30-year life expectancy and we've stretched them to 50 years. So, you know, there's a limit to how long you can do that practically, and at this point, you know, spending all of our cash on that is not a wise thing, given that we're looking at potential property tax freeze if the governor's turnaround agenda gets through, that some or all loss of general state aid, in addition to the potential pension cost shift model. So we've got to prepare to fix our facilities and not, you know, make wrong decisions until we have a set sense of what's going to happen with school funding in Illinois. We should have a better sense of that in the next 6 months.
Will we be able to maybe hire such inspectors of profession that field to just make sure, check the boilers again?
Well, we're
see how long we will possibly extend for additional X1 year.
That's a good segue into the master planning proposal, because more than half of the funds in the White master planning proposal are for engineering services and an extensive mechanical review of our systems and the condition that they're in. And again, we did that 5 years ago, but we have multiple systems that are significantly beyond their expected life. So we're keeping a very careful eye on multiple long-term systems.
So right now we're in the stage of, instead of investing in repairs, maintenance, it's far better to cost-wise effective to replace the brain.
Yeah, once you've exceeded your useful life by more than 20 years, there is no repair option, it is replacement. In fact, the parts for these boilers are no longer made. So that's one of our challenges.
We've rolled the dice here a long time. And if you don't have a plan for replacing, and one breaks in the middle of the winter, you've got to replace it, and then you're probably spending cash that you might need to operate on. So that would not be the advised move.
And if I remember right, there's technology there that people are no longer going to be trained in, because it's,
Yeah.
there's the skills for that, it's obsolete. Okay, anything else? Would you call vote on the motion? Kessler? Aye. Collins?
Aye.
Sullivan? Lee?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 14, approval of the tuition cost per pupil.
Second.
Questions? This is what we discussed a little bit earlier.
I would like to parallel on what we were just talking about. Around the state of Illinois, school district after school district is approving its tuition cost per pupil, and in probably about 99-point-something% of those cases, that cost is going to rise in school districts across Illinois. District 207's tuition cost, operating cost, is actually going down, which is what we have to prove tonight. It's related to those residents to whom we charge tuition that we spoke about earlier. I think it's reflective of the very careful business management that we get in this district with Mary, and just the general, I think, frugal operating and careful budgeting and planning and efficiency that we do in this district. So I think that's related to everything we've talked about leading up to that. So as I said, this has to be done annually by every district, but the fact that ours is going down is a good thing.
Anything else? Would you call the roll? Jean? B.
Aye.
Childers? I'm sorry, Collins?
Aye.
Bessler? Sullivan?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 15, driver education simulation waiver.
So moved.
Second.
This is what the hearing was held on earlier. We need to discuss it any further. Presentation, any questions? Collins?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
Bessler? Owen? Aye. Could I have a motion on item 16A?
Second.
Questions?
Curiosity, I know we are getting 25% commissions every year from the company. what is the number are we talking about annually? What's the approximate amount that we will receive?
On the grad plan?
Because every year graduation time, I'm sure they're going to good money, or the students or parents have to purchase a good portion of flowers, but
I think that that information is supplied by the notes, the check goes directly to the school, so.
but this one company wants to expand and selling T-shirts and all other things.
Well, I believe the school may have requested the commemorative T-shirts as an additional item. That you wanted to
That's
do.
new.
Yeah, so that's why the contract is being modified.
Anything else? Call the roll. Lee? Bessler? Collins? Sullivan? Owen? Aye. Do I have a motion on item 16B? PMA Financial Advisory Agreement? Second?
Oh, second.
Any questions or comments on this? Mary, is there anything you want to
This
mention?
is their services for financial advisement for the proposed bond issue. And there's a detailed list in their contract for the services that they perform. Even today, we went over the draft of our Moody's rating presentation. So there's lots of things that go into a bond sale behind the scenes and putting together the documents. And then having, providing information on the auction and the closing documents.
Your expertise.
So they're gonna go from A to Z on all the steps.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, you call the roll. Kessler? Collins? Lee? Sullivan? Owen? Aye. We have a motion on item 16C, site license agreement with Advocate Health and Hospitals.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments on this? We've gone over this
Time, so we're excited to have a formalized agreement of our long-standing relationship with Advocate Health and Hospital System. What we're now referring to as the District 207 School-Based Health Center.
And we've been dealing with this company for many, many years.
So Advocate has run the School-Based Health Center since its inception.
You just haven't had the agreement in place, a formal agreement.
What did we refer to it before?
Oh. Any other questions or comments? Would you call the roll, Jean? Collins?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Sullivan? Bessler? And Owen? Aye. I have a motion on 16B, White and Company Master Planning Services Proposal. So moved.
Second.
Mary, any?
We've talked about this. This will be the difference between this and the proposal that we did for master planning services 5 years ago was a community engagement piece, which this one will include. So it would be multiple proposals and options for the schools, and then put them in that community and get some feedback from the community.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, will you call the roll? Sullivan? Lee? Bessler? Collins? Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 16D, Lara Engineering. There are three different proposals here. Agreements, I should say.
I'll move E1 to
Second.
We are going direct with Alara, and we're saving approximately about $150,000, which coincidentally we're going to use to fund the facility master plan that we just approved. These projects are mechanical engineering projects. There's one wall. There's a couple, maybe $2,000 worth of architectural fees. The Alara, as you can see in your board packet, we are using the same AIA documents that we do with our architects. Therefore, and they're identical. So we have all the same protections that we would have as a district using our architects. Saving $150,000.
Are there any questions or comments on any of these? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a roll. Wessler? Aye. Sullivan?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Can I have a motion on item 17, use of facilities?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Quick question, I know it's always nice to build a relationship with our district, providing the services, but I know in this particular partnership is charging a applicant or participant, the student, a fee, and the partnership is not paying any fee from, asking a fee from us, district. How would that work? If it's like free of charge, partnership providing a free of charge programs and service to the public and asking for free waiver, that's fine, but they're charging the fee and they're not paying us a fee. Any thoughts on
So,
that?
last year was the first year that Maine West brought this fee waiver. Gymnastics has been a sport that has been struggling, except maybe boys, to obtain participation numbers. The logic behind them granting the waiver last year is to make it more affordable for kids, so hopefully more kids gain an interest in gymnastics. The park district is holding the class during the portion of time where our gymnastics equipment is out for our students. So we're not moving the equipment, and that was Maine West hope, is that this program will spur an interest in gymnastics that will carry forward to higher gymnastics numbers in the future.
And also, we have a reciprocal agreement, so in the springtime, when we have bad weather, that we were allowed to use the park district facilities free of charge for softball, baseball, soccer, without being charged for that. And we had 45 girls try out for girls gymnastics today for 25 positions. We've never had anything like that, so it's working. It's working.
I'm assuming you have liability.
We never waive insurance. So while we will waive a facility usage fee, we always get their certificate of insurance.
Sounds like a nice relationship.
Yes.
Working for the participation. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Judy, will you call the roll? Collins? Aye. Wessler? Aye. Owen? Aye. Lee? Sullivan? Okay. Calendar items. Do we have, I see a number of things here, do we have any other committee meetings coming up or anything you want to go over here?
Need to get in touch with Margaret to schedule a policy. And hopefully what I'd like to be able to do is not only go through the 1,000 series, but the 2,000 series at the same time, be more efficient with everybody's time.
You're gonna try and do that in November or?
I'm gonna try, it's
A lot. Okay. At this time, are there any other communications or public comments? Do you have any comment cards or anything? Okay. Okay. Could I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of review of closed session minutes, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee, and property implement or penalty litigation?
So moved.
Take the roll, please. Wessler? Aye. Collins? Aye. Lee? Aye. Sullivan? Owen? Aye. Okay. Okay. Could I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll, please. Second, please. Wessler? Aye. Collins? Aye. Lee?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Could I have a motion on item 22, personnel action?
I'll move 22A through D.
Is there a second?
Second.
If there's no questions or comments on this, could you call the roll, please? Lee?
Aye.
Collins? Aye. Wessler? Aye. Sullivan?
Aye.
Owen? Aye.
Is there anything under 23?
I do not believe so.
Okay. I'll move 24A.
Approval of closed session.
The board approved closed session minutes from October 3rd, 2016. I'm abstaining, I can't move for a second.
Okay,
I withdraw.
so
I will move
And I second.
to approve the minutes from last time.
I think, when was
All right.
October 3rd, right?
October 3rd.
You were here?
You were on the phone?
I was on the phone, so it is okay, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Considered participant.
Because
Yes.
And he's on the minutes as participating.
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, call the roll, please.
Collins,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Abstain.
Bessler,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Owen.
Aye. Could I have a motion on 25A?
I'll move the settlement agreement and general release with Doe Child, A, B, C, D, and E. That the Board of Education approves the settlement agreement and general release with Doe Child, A, B, C, D, and E.
Okay, I'd like to read a statement before the board takes action on that motion. Oh, sorry. Second? The board reached a consensus in closed session to approve an agreement settling a lawsuit brought by 5 former students against the district and 2 former coaches arising out of the 2012 hazing allegations in the boys soccer program at Maine West High School. Shortly after the hazing was reported, the board disciplined the student perpetrators and initiated proceedings against the 2 staff members named in the lawsuit, which resulted in termination of their employment with the district. The settlement of the lawsuit was directed by the district's insurance providers. Under the key terms of the agreement, the plaintiffs will dismiss permanently the pending lawsuit with no admission or finding of wrongdoing or of liability by the school district and the coaches. In exchange, the district's insurance providers will pay each plaintiff $200,000. Entering into the agreement will avoid the substantial expense of further litigation and the necessity of calling students, former students, and staff to testify at trial. The settlement will bring to closure a matter that has weighed heavily on the entire community since 2012 and is, in the judgment of the board, in the best interests of all involved. Ginny, would you call the roll on this motion?
Bessler,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Owen.
Aye. Could I have a motion on item 25B?
I'll make a motion that the Board of Education approve the final adjudication of an employee discipline case.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Ginny, would you take the roll?
Sullivan,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Bessler,
Aye.
Owen.
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn at 8:39. Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.